Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on a Wednesday evening. Hope everybody's having a great night so far. Interesting news out of the NFL that we're going to discuss this evening about a potential return for Colin Kaepernick, who, of course, was blackballed from the NFL over the the peaceful protest that he was performing during the national anthem. Now trying to find his way over the course of several years back into the league and actually getting his first real life opportunity. Steven Crozier says, boy, the NFL has gone crazy. That's my thing. Like, think about it this way. We're going to get to some rule change stuff. We're going to all laugh at the video of Mike Bravel knocking the shit out of a punching bag later on tonight on the show. But it's just been that kind of year in pro football where Colin Kaepernick getting back into the league as a backup would be like the fifth or sixth biggest story of this offseason. It really has been a crazy last 4 months, but we'll discuss it at length together. We'll give you the details on it here on the Primetime Show. We'll talk about potential rule changes that we would like to have seen enacted, even though one specific one was made that is not what I would look for as far as rule changes are concerned, but we'll cover that. A lot of stuff to get to on the Primetime Show tonight, and happy to have you guys in for another edition of A to Z Sports Primetime. Before we get started, I need you guys to share the show around. Puff, puff, pass, except do it with the Primetime Show. It's prime pass, I guess, as opposed to puff, puff, pass. Either way, share this show on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Twitch. If you are on Twitter with us, please retweet the show. That's in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you are on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, and you can do the very same on Twitch as well. If you are on Facebook Live, you can simply share now to public. That's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. And that way, your friends can get involved on our conversation here on a Wednesday night. Let's go ahead and get the Primetime Show started. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on a Wednesday evening. I'm your host, Buck Rising. I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by our friends at the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. GaryAshton.com. That's where you go for your dream address without the stress. The Ashton team is the place that you need to go for the official real estate agent of the Nashville Predators and of A to Z Sports Prime Time. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet, the Built For You program, and one of the state's largest selection of certified pre-owned vehicles. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet, or online at tworiversford.com. So I don't know if the Colin Kaepernick stuff is even still polarizing at this point. We're so far removed. But I logged onto the show tonight, and the first comment that I saw, because I guess the YouTube commenters can start early ahead of everybody else. I don't know why that's the case, but whatever. So I see this from Lowry on YouTube, and he simply says, "This is a dumb topic." Well, I mean, it's really not. It's a pretty sizable topic given just how long this guy's been out and what caused him to be blackballed from the NFL. I don't know that it remains as just violently polarizing as it was 5 years ago, I guess would have been the case, because Mike Mularkey was still the coach of the Titans when Colin Kaepernick first took a knee. I don't know if it remains as polarizing today as it was then, but it is substantial news in the world of professional football that Colin Kaepernick's going to get a legit workout, not some high school practice facility in Atlanta where you have to move locations at the last minute and have to work through all these different logistical things. And you're trying to figure out, okay, is this guy still a dreaded distraction? Is he going to be a bigger story than the starting quarterback will be? If we bring in Colin Kaepernick, is he going to become a thing that kind of that overshadows everything that goes on with the football team? And in the same way that bringing Tim Tebow back with the Jacksonville Jaguars last year was laugh out loud funny, Colin Kaepernick is probably in a similar mold without the comedy, without the laughability of it. Now, it is laughable to think that, because I saw Mike Florio put out a tweet earlier today, or when this news was first reported by Adam Schefter, saw Mike Florio put out Colin Kaepernick would immediately compete for several starting NFL jobs. And to say that right now, when he's been out of football for, coming up on, this would be 6 seasons, is crazy, is utter nonsense, right? And we know this to be so. He's competing for a backup quarterback job at best at this stage in his career. And honestly, he's still relatively young given how quickly he was in and out of the public consciousness. But I want to start with your Two Rivers Ford take here on a Wednesday evening. What percentage chance do you give Colin Kaepernick of legitimately returning to the NFL? Let me know in the comment section on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Twitch. We'll talk about it together. Your Two Rivers Ford take. Just give me a percentage. Whatever you think, what percentage chance do you give Colin Kaepernick of making a comeback in the league? We'll talk about this on this Wednesday evening. We'll do it courtesy of our friends at Two Rivers Ford. Two Rivers Ford is where you go for the Ford Blue Advantage program. Now, Two Rivers Ford, as you well know, is one of the state's largest selection of quality American-made Ford vehicles, both new and pre-owned. When you go out to their lot in Mount Juliet, you can get exactly what you're looking for, whether it's the Built For You program that allows you to customize your next new Ford, or you go through the process of going through their selection of certified pre-owned vehicles. You want to get a pre-owned vehicle from a dealer that you know is going to operate with honesty and integrity. You want to make sure that for the money that you're spending, you're getting the best possible value and not at a place that's going to cut corners. Two Rivers Ford has done business in Middle Tennessee since 1983, not cutting corners in the least and putting honesty and integrity at the forefront when it comes to the car buying experience. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. So, what percentage chance do you give this guy of legitimately, whatever a comeback would just mean being on an NFL roster again? Beyond a tryout, hell, even a practice squad, I would consider to be a comeback, and that may change your number by degrees, because Adam Schefter first reported the news, but Ian Rappaport gave us some details on the NFL Network about Colin Kaepernick and the team that is having him in for a legitimate workout.
A fascinating development for Colin Kaepernick, who, as you mentioned, has not played in the NFL since 2016, has not had a meeting with the team since 2017 when he went to visit the Seattle Seahawks, who eventually decided not to sign him, despite Pete Carroll saying that he believed Colin Kaepernick should be in the NFL. And there have been several people over the last couple of years who have advocated for Colin Kaepernick getting a chance. One of those people is Las Vegas Raiders owner Mark Davis, who now does have the opportunity to sign him. So Josh McDaniels, the head coach of the Raiders, and Dave Ziegler, the general manager, worked out Colin Kaepernick earlier today. Remains to be seen whether or not they are the ones to give him the opportunity that he has wanted for years and years. He has been working tirelessly. He also has a documentary being made about him right now. Spike Lee is doing it, so the timing would be perfect, let's say, for Colin Kaepernick. Time will tell whether or not this turns into a signing or if it's just an interesting workout.
So there are the details for me and Rappaport, and it would be consequential. Now, you know, how much his price point has changed, what he's willing to play for. I'm sure that's a different circumstance and one that makes him a more viable option for an NFL team who's looking to sign him or would be just looking to consider options at the quarterback position. Percentage chance of him getting back in the league, practice squad, you know, depth quarterback, or starting quarterback. It would be way too soon to tell. But just to get back on an NFL roster, I think would be of great consequence. Jimmy Power says, I'll stop watching the NFL. And listen, there's always going to be that contingent of people who believes that. Jimmy, that's entirely your own prerogative. Nobody's going to force feed you football. Football is going to continue to be the biggest and the baddest and the best sport, the most popular sport, the most consumed sport. There's not going to be anything that slows down the NFL's progress. But Jimmy, you're not alone, right? And how many? I've always been curious, and there's no quantifiable way to do this, to see how many people actually follow through with that. Because I think there are people who have principles, and whether you or I agree with the principles of people who feel that way about Colin Kaepernick, you're not gonna. It's been 6 years. If people aren't going to change their position on it for Colin Kaepernick and peaceful protesting for against police brutality and the way that he chose to do it, in the place that he chose to do it, in the moments that he chose to do it, you're not going to get through to people like that. Now, I'd be curious, Jimmy, because Keelan brings this up. Ask him why he'll stop watching, Buck. And I would like to know, Jimmy, just out of curiosity. Maybe I'm making assumptions about why it is that you would stop watching football, and I want to give you the opportunity to be able to, to be able to tell or to give your opinion and as to why. Because we largely sometimes I think largely we get people who I may assume how they feel about a certain position because they don't have full context in the way that the commenting works, and I try to make sure that we have fair and honest and reasonable discussions. Now, I can't dictate how you guys talk to one another in the chat, and I think that I think that largely, though, the majority of you are respectful. So I would be legitimately curious, Jimmy, why is it that you would stop watching the NFL if Colin Kaepernick was to say be on the Seattle Seahawks practice squad, right? Or something to that effect. People say they won't listen to Buck's show, but they know they still listen at some, again, probably, right? Because and again, I would love to hear from Jimmy. If I see Jimmy's producer Reed, if you would keep an eye out for it, just because I do want to give people a fair opportunity to respond. And if they don't do so after the fact, then, we'll just keep the show moving. I'm not going to stop everything because one person has an opinion that we're waiting anxiously to hear from. And because a lot of people would be curious to hear that. And maybe they don't want to get, maybe they don't want to get pounced on, because it's easy to say I'll stop watching, but it's harder to say why, right? I think that's the kind of thing that that fosters productive conversations, as opposed to just, blanket statement, I'll stop watching football if Colin Kaepernick comes back. When in reality, you're probably going to still throw on the red zone from time to time. What percentage chance do I give it? I would say probably anywhere between 15 and 20% of him being on a roster in some form or fashion when the season starts. That may be a little high, just because it's been so long since he's been in an NFL locker room. He can continue to work out and continue to train and do all the things that one can do with limited resources in the offseason. Or in the straight up years that he's been out. I mean, 6 years is not a decade, but if I wanted to spin it, you could say that Colin Kaepernick has now been out of football for the better part of a decade, which maybe makes that resonate a little bit more than just saying 6 years have gone by since Colin Kaepernick last was on an NFL roster. Thaddeus L. Young says, "How do you feel, Buck? Like truly feel about Kaepernick?" Oh, I mean, my position, I think, has been well known. I am fully in support of what Colin Kaepernick did for the purposes of Colin Kaepernick's beliefs, for Colin Kaepernick's stance that I believe, even if the messenger wasn't perfect, and who among us is, right? You can have terrible moments and he did have terrible moments where he's I think he was speaking to Miami Dolphins media while he was still a member of the 49ers towards the end about, things about Cuba that were very, very ill-informed and really misguided. I think that Colin Kaepernick, I think he had socks with pigs faces with police hats on. That was a message that was not well delivered and really not very calculated in its approach. But I think the larger cause was just, right? Yeah, you want people to pay attention to police brutality against minorities, right? Whether that's African Americans, whether that's Latinos, whether that's Asian Americans, or whichever, whether that's people like me who have Middle Eastern backgrounds, right? You want to support people who point out injustices and societal ills. So yeah, I've always been on the side. Now, I'm a much different person than I was 6 years ago. And I probably didn't articulate those kind of things very well 6 years ago, in the similar way that Colin Kaepernick may have not done the thing that he wanted to in the way or with the kind of strategy that I think he would probably now at an advanced age look back and say, yeah, I could have done that differently. it's all armchair quarterbacking at the end of the day. But I think overall, you have to look at, okay, what's he doing? He's kneeling while the national anthem is being played. Why is he doing it? Well, because there is an unprecedented rate of police brutality against minorities, and something that has been exposed largely through social media and the way that everything is highly documented and highly videoed now. And if Colin Kaepernick chooses to bring this to the forefront in a way that is not harmful, then yeah, completely and totally in support of the cause itself, even if I disagree with some of the ways that the message came across. I think that's the way that any reasonable and willing to discuss person, right? Yeah, and people are going to be one way or the other. I'm sure I haven't looked at the comments now that I've made reiterated my position. It's been 6 years, so it's plenty of time for people to get pissed off one way or the other on this kind of stuff. And listen, I've had conversations about Colin Kaepernick with my stepfather. My stepfather, who's a Vietnam War vet, and he was on the side of, not that this is necessarily sides, but he was of the opinion that the kneeling during the national anthem is one of the greatest disrespects for people who give their lives for freedoms, right? And for the freedom of American citizens and those who have sacrificed, who have given the ultimate sacrifice. And that's a position that I don't have life experience with that. I did not serve in Vietnam. I did not have to go through military training at Parris Island. I am an American citizen, fortunately, and my parents made sure of that. Hell, they were, when my parents were pregnant with me, they were still living in Egypt. And they came back here specifically so that I would have the opportunity, all of the opportunities that being an American citizen affords. And that's not lost on me, especially as somebody who goes back and forth on a regular basis. Well, not a regular basis, but who over the course of my lifetime has been in many different countries, and certainly in the country where a lot of my family is from, where my entire dad's side of the family is from, in Egypt. And I know how the rest of the world lives, right? And how much different the Egyptian experience is as opposed to the American experience, or how much different the Chinese experience is, because my sister's adopted from China. We've got a mini United Nations in our house, something that we're very, very proud of as a family, and something that we've always, that my mom really has always done so well to make sure that we keep core at our values. And there are different perspectives that everybody should, not everybody is going to have your experience, right? In fact, we're all going to have our unique experiences. And Colin Kaepernick kind of creates this lightning rod around this, where everybody has their own experiences, and you're arguing with people who may not have lived the way that you lived, and lived through the things that you lived through, or may just not have been around for moments in your life that mattered of great consequence, that the American flag signifies, that may not hit the same for people of a younger generation because of whatever, just generational differences. And I think all of those things are so important, because in a way that you can sit and have useful and meaningful conversations with one another. There's also a lot of this stuff that people are just going to scream at you. Gas prices are too high. Bleep the president, or whatever, anything that Donald Trump tweeted at any given point. For Joe Biden, it's gas prices. For Donald Trump, it was social media, right? And before that, Barack Obama was, largely around President Trump, it was birth certificates. And before that, it was that George Bush couldn't say nuclear, right? Like there's so many different things that I think people assign, so many different things that people assign to this thing that may not necessarily have the kind of relevance that they want to assign to it. It's a deeper psychological issue, honestly, and it's pretty fascinating if you take the time to kind of dig into it. And most people don't have the time, or don't want to take the time, or whatever, and I understand that. It's my job to be able to study this stuff, and to understand this stuff, and read reporting on it, and try and talk to people around it, and try and gain a greater understanding, so that I can come on here and hopefully have productive conversations with you guys. And I'm not actively seeking to change the way that you think about stuff, but perhaps if I can give you a different train of thought than the one that you had been previously entrenched in, and maybe I make some good points, or maybe you guys make some good points, and we can kind of we can kind of go from there. I think that there's a lot of this stuff that gets lost, I guess, just basically in the shuffle. And Colin Kaepernick is one of the biggest lightning rods in the middle of that. He literally, One Nation Underground says he literally compared the combine to slave trading less than a year ago. Well, I mean, that's not an assessment that I'm in a position to make. But I think that the entire athlete, the way that we treat athletes as commodities, or view athletes as commodities, and do treat them as commodities because of their business is literally their bodies. I mean, it may not. I'm not here to. I don't have the world experience, or the background, or any of that to get into slavery comparisons, right? But I mean, I go to the combine every year, and it feels like I'm attending a livestock show with human beings, and that kind of doesn't feel great all of the time, even as I understand the medical evaluation process and all the different things that come about it. I think that it's okay to make people uncomfortable with a different train of thought than your own, and how you respond to that is entirely your own prerogative, and nobody's going to be able to change that for you, Colin Kaepernick, One Nation Underground, or anybody in between. I think that's okay. Like, I don't think you have to get all bent out of shape about it. You can allow somebody to express their opinion, and continue on your train of thought or your path, whatever the case may be. It's interesting that it continues to happen this way, right? I think that there's a lot of this. Chris Flint says we don't talk to each other anymore, Buck, and it's true. And by the way, it's not just that we don't talk to and I've kind of been experiencing this. We touched a little bit on the tragedy in Texas that took place with the school shooting yesterday, and I told you guys that I don't care about what your politics are. Like, I don't care how you think, what you think of President Biden, what you think of President Trump, what you think of Nancy Pelosi, what you think of oh hell, I can't even think of this. Probably speaks to a larger political ignorance on my part. I would have said Boehner. John Boehner's been gone for a long time. I think is it McCartney or McCarthy? Anyway, whoever the Republican minority leader is at this point in time. Forgive me. I don't like I said, my parents worked in politics and government for 35 years. But I'm not going to go. Now I can name the three branches of government, which is something that, for example, Tommy Tuberville couldn't do as an elected official and former Auburn coach. So at least I've got that going for me. But yeah, I mean, a lot of I don't care. But Chris's point is and I think Colin Kaepernick kind of brings that out in people, or we don't talk to one another anymore. We shout an opinion, and we want the opinion to be louder than the other person's opinion. And then we go on with this, whether it's in sports, whether it's in politics. Hell, it can be anything, especially with the way that social media has kind of warped everybody's approach to dialogue generally, right? But I think the thing that also jumps out to me, Chris, is that we don't really criticize internally either. Like, it's almost like people feel that because one is a Democrat, a Republican, an independent, that you have to embrace and support all of the positions on one side of the aisle and not criticize internally to find ways to better your respective party's position. We don't do that. I don't think Democrats do that well. I don't think Republicans do that well. And again, I'm not familiar with all the intricacies of independent party politics, but I would say that, yeah, we don't talk to one another, and we really don't talk internally either. We're just not good at communicating, it would seem. And that's how these things kind of get, spun out of control. Are the Raiders trying to further reverse the John Gruden thing, says Percy Sledge. Percy, I'm glad that you brought that up, because it can't be discounted. It can't outright be discounted on the whole, because Mark Davis is, by the way, I mean, we've seen with the Las Vegas Raiders organization, we've seen a lot of this stuff. We've seen a lot of this stuff coming out in the last couple of, in the last couple of weeks. Didn't they just have a president last about a month, the president of the team, and then retire because there was some things going on? There was things going on internally that caused great strife that forced him to leave his position, or that he felt he needed to leave his position so that he didn't get entangled in whatever the Vegas Raiders had going on. And yeah, John Gruden's thing is still ongoing. So, I would not discount the idea that it would be as much public relations as it would be, legitimate football thing. And it can be both at the same time. If it works out on the football field standpoint, yeah, great for the Raiders. And if it doesn't work out on the football side of things, then at least one of the 32, well, I guess there's one of the 31 NFL ownership groups, because the Packers are publicly owned, then you can be the one ownership group that was like, yeah, we gave him a shot. You guys didn't. So I think that it can be both things at the same time. It's a good point brought up by Percy. Reed pulled this clip from the I Am Athlete podcast. They did an interview with Colin Kaepernick about, his process and everything that's brought him through the several years now, going on 6 years, almost 7, of everything that's gone down in Colin Kaepernick's life and what made him such a polarizing figure. And I think to play a clip of this may give you a little perspective, because I don't know how many people have heard from Colin Kaepernick or have sought out his comments. There haven't been a ton made publicly other than the odd social media message. But to hear it in Colin's own words, especially after several years of reflection, I don't think it hurts anything as far as the conversation is concerned.
The message for GMs and owners, and you wanted them to know anything right now, what would you say?
Let's role play. Talk to me. I'm the GM. Come on.
You doing method acting?
Yeah, come on, watch this, because I'm the GM. Let's play it. Let's go.
We got you here today.
So let me come in and compete. You have your roster, you had a team. Let me come in, compete, show you what I can do.
Well, Cap, football, it's all about eliminating distractions. Like, how do I know if I bring you in and I sign you that you're going to make my locker room better, that you're going to bring us together?
One, you can know by experience. My coach, Jim Harbaugh, spoke to it. My coach, Kelly, spoke to it and said that I made the locker room better. I came in, I prepared, I made the team better. That 2016 season, my last year, my teammates voted me the most courageous and inspirational player. So when you're talking about the people that are actually in the building, that has never come out that have been a distraction. It's never come out that have been an issue from the people I played with.
Cap, can I keep it real with you, Cap? This is between you and I. Don't tell nobody. $16 billion industry, Cap. What about our fan base? What do we say to our fan base? What are they going to say?
I say you have end racism in the back of your end zone. You got Black Lives Matter on your helmet. Everything I've said should be in alignment with what you're saying publicly. It's a $16 billion business. When I first took a knee, my jersey went to #1. When I did the deal with Nike, their value increased by $6 billion. $6 billion. With a B.
With a B.
With a B.
So we acting. Come on, stay in mode.
Talk that talk, man.
You broke character. You broke character.
Talk that talk.
So if you're talking about the business side,
it makes
it
sense.
shows beneficial.
Yeah.
If you're talking about the playing side, come in, let me compete. You can evaluate me from there. The NFL is supposed to be a meritocracy. Come in, let me compete. If I'm not good enough, get rid of me. But let me come in.
And it goes on at length. That's courtesy of the I Am Athlete podcast. And, I think it's interesting because I personally hadn't heard from Colin Kaepernick in his own voice in a long time. And I think that those are well-made points, and there are counter arguments, of course. And again, people who feel strongly and fiercely about the way in which he chose to peacefully protest, then they will continue to be entrenched in their position. I will not tell somebody how to feel or not feel about the American flag, even as it may not represent the same kind of deeply embedded pride and not to say that I'm not proud of the American flag, but to the degree where I'm not willing to listen to another side of things, where immediately, and by the way, I think it's worth noting, producer Reed and I have not seen the response as to why. Who was it earlier? Jimmy said that he wasn't going to watch the NFL anymore. Jimmy has been notably quiet while everybody else is carrying on the conversation around this, which I do find to be very, very interesting indeed. But yeah, I mean, it's there are ways to discuss the logic, and maybe that's not the setting where people are going to push back in real time on the Colin Kaepernick. I don't think Brandon Marshall is. I thought that they did that well, but I don't necessarily I think there may be other people who may be able to interview Colin Kaepernick and bring out a couple of different points that I think are completely reasonable to discuss. But with everything that it's gone through, and with the opportunity to reflect in literal years of reflection, I think there's zero wrong with the idea of just bringing the guy in to try and play quarterback. And if it doesn't work, okay, then you've given him the opportunity. That's all that's being asked for at the end of the day. Now, his price point may have changed. He may be playing for league minimum, veteran league minimum. He may not be playing for legit backup quarterback money anymore. Those are real things, and those can be discussed. I'm sure he would want market value, even as he has not had the resume of your conventional backup quarterback. And, maybe those things can be worked out over time. Maybe he can earn another opportunity, another bite, another legit bite at the NFL quarterback salary cap apple. But at this point, it's okay. It's not going to have the kind of effect that it did, certainly, back in 2016. It's not going to be the thing. It's not going to be the thing that brings down the NFL. Even though I think, if I recall at the time, that ratings were being cited and all these different things, and you had divisive language on both sides, right? And just people wanting to pick fights because they assigned things to Colin Kaepernick that wasn't necessarily Colin Kaepernick's position. So answer this, Thaddeus wants to know, and then we'll move on to some rule change stuff, a little lighter fare on this Wednesday night. Thaddeus wants to know, answer this, Buck. How do you feel about him kneeling? Do you think he should have done it another way? If you said these, I already apologize. Well, I think that based on all of the reporting around it, is that, and I wish that I had perhaps producer Reed could look this up for me. Reed, there was somebody who had military service in their background that Colin Kaepernick consulted with, and who advised him to kneel in a way that they, I think, thought at the time would be perceived as more respectful than sitting on the bench and chilling, which was the initial thing that happened during the preseason. I think that I want to have the guy's name specifically, because Xavier Clemens is telling me a military officer told him it was fine, but I want to have the reporting on it, the details on it specifically before I Nate Boyer, thank you, retired Army Green Beret Nate Boyer, good job out of producer Reed, who advised Colin Kaepernick initially to take the knee as a form of peaceful protest. And so I would defer. I would defer to a retired Army Green Beret. If anybody is going to understand on a deeper level what that flag signifies and what that flag means to people who have been in military service, I think that I would defer to him. If that was good enough for Nate Boyer, then that's plenty good enough for me. But it's not my decision. It's not my prerogative to tell people how they should or should not feel about the American flag. That's the beauty of all of this. You can feel about the flag, about Colin Kaepernick, about NFL rule changes. You can feel about however you want. That's I think that's a completely fair thing. He should have asked the wife of men that are given a flag. Roy, I don't know that he didn't, right? But because I think there are all different ways, and I don't want to dismiss anybody's opinion on this. I would say that I think over the course of the last 6 years, it has been well documented the amount of due diligence that Colin Kaepernick has done since the initial protest. Nate Boyer on the front end took the knee. People responded to it the way that they did. And we have seen all kinds of different reporting on who Colin Kaepernick has consulted with, who Colin Kaepernick has worked with to kind of gain a deeper understanding about, from his standpoint, about why he felt what he was doing is just, and people who may feel the opposite on those things. I don't know that he didn't talk to those people, Roy. And I think that to assume that he didn't, your position is your position, but I think there has been substantial reporting around the different groups that Colin Kaepernick has consulted with. And I don't want to, in the same way that you're assuming that he didn't, I don't want to assume that he did. I think that a little bit of research on this would do everybody some good. And and he may not get a job with the Raiders, and it may be done after this. Who knows? And everybody's getting bent out of shape again for nothing. One Nation Underground says that flag, it was draped over my family member's coffin. F Colin Kaepernick. I'm sure there are plenty of people who completely identify with that position. And of course that of course you want to be respectful of people who have had family members who have passed away in the line of duty. And I think that in certain aspects, you're not going to be able to please everybody. You're not going to be able to talk to everybody. But as long as the work that he's doing is in line with what he is saying, and that he's doing the work on the front end to support his position on the back end, then I think that's all you can ask for him. And you can disagree with it if you like. Because there is not, I think it's just about the significance of human life generally, right? And this is a much deeper version of the conversation that I thought we were going to have. I thought we were just going to talk about backup Raiders quarterbacks. Honestly, I really thought that this was not going to be nearly as deep as it ended up being. But I think it's just about the general value of human life that we're arguing over, right? Whereas some people see this as a diminishment of those who gave their lives, Colin Kaepernick is looking at the other side of things and saying, yeah, but what about the lives of people that are lost with the amount of police brutality that is well documented? Like it's not an opinion type of thing. These are things that there are quantifiable research and studies done across many years. So I think that there's going to continue to be ongoing discussion about it, right? Leo says, damn it, Jimmy, you started this. Yeah, I really was curious. And I think that's kind of the rabbit hole. But, again, Jimmy noticeably silent when all I'm asking, all I'm curious is why. And a lot of you gave me why, but it wasn't the guy who started this, right? And I think that's the thing that kind of gets frustrating a little bit about this. John Buck says, or rather, William Young says, Buck, you will never please the mob. Nah, I mean, well, yeah, but I could talk to him, right? Like, I don't think that's like, I'm not calling you guys a mob, but like, you guys have strong opinions, right? And I'm talking to you, and you're talking back to me, and we're having a fine ongoing discussion. Like maybe some people are going to get in their feelings about this, and that's okay. That means you're passionate. I think that's totally fine. It's just about a line of being respectful and a line of trying to see both sides and then formulating your opinion from there. And I think that's really all that it boils down to, because it is a conversation about the value of human life, and that that the loss of life should not be greater in certain circumstances than another, even if one is in a circumstance where there is a great deal of nobility in sacrificing your life and being willing to sacrifice your life for the good of others. There are not always just deaths on either side, or noble deaths on either side, right? But I think it is fair to kind of I think it is fair to kind of parse these things, and that's okay. And that's what makes these conversations. I enjoy them. I don't know if you guys. I think largely people are willing to engage. I think that it wears on you, right? Like if we were doing Kaepernick shows every other day, then you would get sick of it. If I was doing Kaepernick shows the way I'm doing Traylon Burks shows, you guys would get sick of that shit. Same way you got sick of AJ Brown, right? It's about kind of trying to feel out the messaging on some of this stuff. And yeah, I think that's completely reasonable. So I appreciate you guys being willing to have a respectful conversation about it. And I appreciate everybody's opinions on it to help us further advance the conversation. And, maybe we don't change any minds, and that's okay. But at least we've had a respectful discussion about it. John says, Buck getting back-to-back nights with emotional stories. Seriously, you're handling it all well. Great job. I mean, hey, I enjoy these kind of things. Now, I can't. Last night was different. So let me be more measured with my words. Because I don't enjoy that. I don't enjoy any of that. That made me sick to my stomach, because it did all of us, I'm sure, to see. I think the count was up to 19 school children as of the reporting most recently, and 2 school teachers. So I let me be more measured in my words to say that I don't enjoy all of these conversations, but if it gives us the opportunity to have intelligent and engaging conversations around it, then I do relish those opportunities, because that's a lot of people get into sports talk because they want to talk about touchdowns and running backs and quarterbacks and NBA finals and all these different things. And yeah, that's cool and all that, but I think there's a lot deeper stuff in sports that not everybody considers, and those are the kind of conversations that I really like to sink my teeth into. But I can do the quarterback depth chart talk, Malik Willis mentor-gate bullshit too. We can do all of that. That's what makes this show fun, I think, for everybody. I hope it's fun for you guys, because I know Reed and I certainly enjoy doing it. Maybe Reed doesn't enjoy it all the time, but I think more often than not, Reed seems to enjoy things. Anyway, let's move on and let's talk about NFL. Just a graceful transition. Let me talk about NFL rule changes, shall I? What nonsense. Actually, you know what? I mean, it's already 9:00. Let's do the Mike Vrabel thing. I don't really give a shit about NFL rule changes tonight after we just did 42 minutes straight on all of this. I really how am I supposed to talk to you about, practice squad amendments and IR changes after that? What am I going to do with that? Instead, let's watch a funny video of Mike Vrabel knocking the shit out of a punching bag in the Titans weight room. Can we do that? That will be fun. Okay. The question that I would like to ask you is this on A to Z Sports Prime Time. In the comments on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, if you would be kind enough to tell me which Titans media member's face is on Mike Vrabel's punching bag. This is the question. Now, I've done some investigative journalism to this effect that I look forward to sharing with you guys. Which Titans media member's face is on Mike Vrabel's punching bag? Give me your response on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Twitch. We will discuss at length together, and we will watch a funny video right after I tell you about our friends at the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. GaryAshton.com. That's where you go for your dream address without the stress. The Ashton team, the official real estate agent of the Nashville Predators and of me. I got my home through the Ashton team, coming up on 3 years in June. All it has done is skyrocket in property value, and not just because the real estate market went crazy over the course of the 3 years that I've been a homeowner, but because I had the intel edge from the Gary Ashton team to know exactly which part of town was going to most see the return on my investment as a first-time homeowner. That's exactly the way that it's played out, and I could not be more grateful for Gary and his team for making that possible for me. The Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage at GaryAshton.com. So, whose face is on Mike Vrabel's punching bag? That's the question that I want to ask you guys. Now, maybe you have not seen this video yet. Taylor Lewan initially took the video, and then a lot of people picked it up and ran with it. For example, Pat McAfee, who had a bit of a field day with it on his show today.
Mike Vrabel is boxing against a round heavy bag. I do not know the proper technical terms. I do know he's throwing left and right at an uppercut like he's Tyson Fury. The coach of the year, Vrabel, knows that Harbaugh might be pissed that the boys are on the logo, and he's throwing bombs around the boys at Tennessee. It is called a
wrecking ball heavy bag.
He's fucking wrecking. He came and knocked out a wrecking ball in front of all the boys you know. The staff in Tennessee, you see, he'll send you right to CTE. All right. Vrabel is staying sharp. If a coach wants to get some, they can fucking get it. If somebody on the other team happens to stumble into the sideline, give him an shove and not apologize properly. Look at that uppercut to the jaw. You wearing a helmet? I don't care.
Accidentally just muted myself as the video came back. Anyway, it's laugh out loud funny. And Luan is probably going to get his ass ripped because Mike, I'm sure, does not want people taking videos of what he's doing in the practice facility. But which Titan media member's face is on the punching bag? That's the biggest question. Now, I think everybody knows who the odds-on favorite is. I think that's a fair assessment. Derek, Chris Harp, Karen O'Keefe, William Young, Mark Jones, B. French, Kevin Jones, John Bobst, William Young. Now Mark Jones switching it up with my face. It's possible, but here's the thing. Like, I think I'm middle ground. Now, maybe I think there's days where Mike Vrabel would like to hit every one of us in the face. I think. Truly I do. And I think anybody can get it on any given day, when you're dealing with Mike Vrabel in press conferences. I think that Paul is for sure the odds-on favorite, because of course. And I think that a sneaky good second, because I'm not at his press conferences every day like I used to be. I'm there usually about once a week during the practice week, and then after every game, because of the radio show schedule, it kind of makes it a little more difficult for me to be out there every day the way that I used to be. But I think, one, it helps me stay in the middle ground because I'm not there every day. So my exposure to ask stupid questions of Mike Vrabel is limited. I think Paul wins every time. I think that John Glennon would be a sneaky second. I think that Mike Vrabel gets sick of Johnny's shit on a regular basis. I don't think Jim Wyatt is necessarily low on the list either, even as he is a team employee, because there are some times when Mike wants to be done talking for the day. And Jimmy, the in-house team guy, is asking more questions, Mike Vrabel, who may not want to answer them on any given day. If Stillman was there more often, he'd probably be higher. I think Terry McCormick in the Zoom era was probably public enemy number one, because for the life of him, he couldn't figure out the internet, which is still, to this day, hilarious. But I think now Mike finds it more funny, the incompetence. I think Mike finds it more funny, the incompetence, as opposed to irritating. But again, that depends on the day. So yeah, the answer is Paul. Because I did some investigative journalism on this. I said the odds-on favorite is Paul, but I bet Johnny would be sneaky good value. And what in all of my great investigative work, the thing that seemed to be landed on is like, yeah, it's Paul. It would be Paul. If you had to pick one, it'd be Paul, without question. Kevin Jones says, what about Davenport? I assume you mean Tehran as opposed to Dawn. I think that, TD doesn't really, I don't think TD, I mean, there are days when Mike and TD will not like go back and forth, but I think maybe Mike will kind of shrug off Tehran's questions, but he doesn't outright like go at Tehran the way that he has gone at Paul or Glennon or Jimmy or Terry or I haven't gotten a smoke in a while. It's been a little bit, but I've definitely had moments in my life. Keelan says, wait, Buck, what happened to your avatar? What do you mean? I told Reed I'd fire him if he didn't get rid of it. What do you mean what happened to my avatar? I told him, get that shit out of my face. It was funny the one time because we react to it live, and I said, Reed, if you value your job at all, I'll never see that thing again. And you know what? Reed likes his job, and so I never have to see it again. Good on Reed. You know what? That's coachability. Oh, goodness. Let's see. I just hope it's not Ben from the Tennessee. He does have a sneaky weird thing for Ben. It is, and I don't know why, because Ben may be the least offensive of any of us, like truly. Ben Arthur of the Tennessean, he does have kind of a weird thing with Ben from time to time that he does not seem. Maybe it's just because like last year was Ben's first year with all of us, and so maybe that's just kind of like a hey rookie, welcome to the Titans media corps type of thing. Or maybe he doesn't like Ben. I don't know why you wouldn't like Ben. Ben is again the least offensive of any of us. He's an incredibly polite human being. Maybe his questions are a little long, and maybe Mike, who values efficiency in all things, just would rather him say, just shut the hell up, just stop talking, just ask the question. Because I get that. I ramble when I ask questions sometimes. It happens to any of us. Especially the more talking that I do by myself, where I'm trying to explain my larger point, and then I realize, oh, I'm not doing a radio show. I'm just trying to ask a press conference question. Get it out, you idiot. But yeah, outside of that, it's for sure Paul. All right, it's going to do it for us on this prime time Wednesday night. That's right, at the end of the show. Thursday, one more show to do. Radio show tomorrow. Bruce Feldman of Fox Sports and The Athletic is going to be on. We're going to talk about a lot of changes in the world of college football and a lot of this bickering going on in the SEC. We will do, what else are we doing tomorrow? Oh, we're going to talk a lot about Austin Hooper, with all of the things that I think he's going to be able to provide to Ryan Tannehill and the offense this year. John says, I should be in town for the Bengals game, and if I am, I'll have a cartoon buck on a shirt. You can have a cartoon buck on a shirt, John, but just know if it's the cartoon that I don't like, then I'm not. If it's just a picture that I don't like, just generally, I'm not going to acknowledge it. I'll do well. I can't fire you the way that I threatened to fire Reed, but I'll figure out something to do. Roy says, did they get any SEC games in today? I don't know what happened with the college. I know that Vandy and Tennessee got pushed. Did they not play a single college baseball game today in the tournament? He's shaking his head no at Murray. She's shaking. I don't think he knows specifically either. I don't know if UK and Auburn ever got off the ground. But anyway, we can talk about college baseball on the radio show tomorrow. See you guys. Have a great night.